Thank you once again for coming to listen to the Dancing Sober podcast. Today, we're doing our first remote podcast. We're using the Tascam Mixcast and our Tascam microphones today, and our Tascam headphones. Thanks to Tascam for all that. Our sponsors, of course, like always, is Movita Juice Bar, and we had somebody cancel on Wednesday, and unfortunately that happened, and we couldn't be able. We didn't record in the studio, but we have. Luckily, a friend of ours showed up, and he was able to do it, and he was only able to do it late. So here we are, late at night on a Thursday night. You're listening to this on Friday morning, and we are in the studio right here with Manuel López. Let's get into it. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Here we are with Mr. Manuel López. We are sitting inside of his studio in Boyle Heights, and the studio only has a bunch of sketches up on the wall because Manuel has a show opening this Saturday. Mm-hmm. But before getting into that, let's get into a little bit about you, Manuel, and where you grew up, what you up to, where you been at. Saluda a la gente.
Hello, everybody. My name is Manuel López. I was born in East LA. I grew up in Boyle Heights. And right now, what I'm in the middle of is a solo show at Charlie James Gallery in Chinatown. And I've been working on this show for the past 3 months. So, been in here almost every day for the most of the day.
We're going to get into that madness right now because I know you've gone through a lot of madness. So let's go a little bit backwards. And you grew up in East LA. You went to Ford Elementary, or?
No, sir. I went to Brooklyn Avenue Elementary. Shout out to the Roadrunners.
Brooklyn Avenue Elementary, right there.
Well, yeah, I went to Lorena first in Boyle Heights, Lorena, and then we moved over to East LA, and I went to Brooklyn Avenue Elementary.
E. Griffith.
And then Griffith.
Garfield.
And then Garfield.
Puro Bulldogs.
Puro Bulldogs. And then I became a Husky for a short while.
Oh, yeah.
ELAC.
How was your experience at ELAC? I mean, a lot of us have been in ELAC. I was like, they used to call me the ghost of ELAC because I was there for so long.
Yeah.
What is your, your experience at ELAC? Because there's so many artists right now that are, notable artists that have all gone to ELAC and gone through the art department.
I think I was in a similar situation. I think I graduated from high school and I did not know what to do with my life as an 18-year-old. But I discovered drawing my senior year in high school. I never took any art classes in high school, but I did a couple of drawings and people seem to like them, so I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should pursue this. I took a couple of intro classes at ELAC, and then I went through them, and I also took some math classes, but I didn't do that well.
And so you put 2 + 2 together,
and I got 5, man.
You decided to paint.
Yeah, so I took English, I took philosophy, and I love those classes, but just math I couldn't get into it, so I took a bunch of intro classes, and then I went through them, and surprisingly enough, I got good grades. And I started talking to a lot of the instructors, became, pretty close with the instructors. They were always very encouraging. They were, I used to love the critiques, and very constructive criticism was very,
I mean, shout out to ELAC because
for real, yeah.
Every department has some really solid people.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man.
It does. I don't think I was ever, I was disappointed with one teacher.
Yeah.
It was a Chicano studies teacher, unfortunately. But
are we going to mention the name?
No.
Oh, okay.
But you should get closer. It actually sounds better.
Okay.
If you can. But,
yeah, for sure.
But definitely, had some really solid teachers at East LA College that they really do respect the students. I felt like the people that I worked with.
Yeah, I agree with you. Jim Ujikawa at the ELAC art department, he's still there. Yeah, pretty solid teacher right there.
What a quick what would you say to a student that's going to ELAC right now? Just off the
Do
cuff.
your work.
Do your work.
Do your work, yeah.
Do you think that's the most important part about like going to like a, I guess any kind of school?
Yeah, I think if if you really put if you put effort into the work, I think especially like with art, where they kind of measure what you got, and if you're not, if you're just kind of like, yeah, like you can't, I mean, whatever they tell you is going to fall short because you're not being honest with the work, so
Yeah.
I always try to, do
Yeah.
work and put in work. It was kind of cool because sometimes, like after class was over, we used to have an assignment, and
Wait.
I would stay
I don't want to
late.
interrupt you, but yeah,
Yeah.
just face the microphone.
Okay.
Maybe if you turn your chair a little bit. Yeah, like that.
Okay. So yeah, so sometimes I would stay overtime at the studios and at ELAC, and the teachers there would be like, okay, well, so I just called the sheriff's station to let them know that you're gonna be working here. When you leave, just turn off the lights. Make sure you close the door. I mean, it was that sort of trust because
Yeah.
they would see you there. I would always be there.
Yeah.
I would always be using, like, I used to take live drawing class, so we would always use like a skeleton model, and I would always be like drawing that guy. Like I think I could draw a skeleton from memory, man. But it was just that sort of trust with certain students, not all of them, but the majority. Like you knew who was there to be there. So.
I
So
definitely
took
had
advantage.
like some professors like that. I had the keys to the little theater back in the days before VPAM was built. There was a little theater there, and I had the keys to
Was
the
that
theater.
the black box or something?
Yeah, it was a black box theater, a little small theater,
yeah.
and I was. I mean, I had the keys. I could go rehearse anytime. I could go build something if I needed to. I could go and practice the lights anytime. And yeah, for a while I had the keys to like the whole realm.
Yeah, no, it makes you feel a little special, man. Like
Yeah.
it's like it's a playground. You had access to the props, you had to the lights. It just it felt good, man.
And
Yeah,
I've been around you when we draw. You can definitely draw for hours. Like I'm done. Pretty. I can have a good time drawing, but
Yeah.
I usually when I'm done, you're barely getting warmed up, and you still have like an hour or two in you, and that's when I end up fucking around
no,
doing other shit.
when I barely started doing like the landscapes, well, after maybe like a year or two, after I started doing the drawings, the landscape drawings, sometimes I would invite friends. I'm like, hey, you guys want to go? Okay, well, let's go. And then after about an hour, they were all done with the landscape, and I'll be like, just barely,
know, dude.
oh shit, I need this
I know
fucking
exactly.
little doorknob, this fucking, and they would be all bored, and so then I felt bad. I would be like, damn, these guys, like, they probably already want to go home, or they want to, like,
Yeah.
they just be sitting on the hillside, just.
Try not to bother you because you're working, right?
And I think, yeah, and I really get into it. I really
Yeah.
get into it, and it's funny. Like back in 2019, I was invited to a show in Chicago by Mario Ibarra. He curated a show with Tiger Strikes Asteroid out there in Chicago, and I went, and it was cold. I think it was like one of the coldest. I used to live in Chicago. I lived there for 3 years. That particular year 2019 was very, very cold. I think it was in the negatives. And I don't think I'd ever experienced the negatives when I used to live in Chicago. It was always like in the zeros or teens. But I remember I met up with a friend out there. He's studying, he had just graduated from SAIC. And he invited me to his house. We picked up a couple of beers. And he's like, hey, man, I have access to the roof. You want to go draw? I'm like, all right, let's go. And then we took the beers, and we were drinking. We were drinking the beers, and every 5 minutes I took a sip or whatever. And then I started to realize that the beer started to get colder and colder, and then it became mushy with ice, and then it became solid, And then it took about a good 10, 15 minutes. And I did manage to finish the drawing, and no gloves, just pretty stupid idea because frostbite is real.
Yeah.
I came out like a nice little composition, but I just thought it was really funny because we were like a negative 15 that night.
Damn.
And that was in the winter of 2019. And then come summer 2019, I did I stayed in Joshua Tree, Palm Springs area for 3 days, just kind of driving around and doing little landscapes of the mountain ranges and all that. And it was for one of them at about 11 a.m. I was doing a landscape of a mountain, and it was at that time it was already 120.
Damn.
And so I finished the drawing. I spent like a good hour on it, but then like I realized like when I came back to LA, driving back, I was just thinking about the drawings that I made, and like it was kind of, I guess I was kind of testing the limits of me drawing under very interesting conditions.
Yeah.
And like a negative 17 and then 120. So like the range of the weather conditions, and working under that condition. And so when we're in City Terrace and it's 80 degrees under the shade, it's a piece of cake, man. It's a piece of cake, man.
So you took us to Chicago, and in your story here, and so after you finished at East LA College, you went to what school in Chicago, and
so I
maybe
spent
tell us a little bit of your story.
Yeah, so like you, like I spent a long time at ELAC.
Yeah.
Because I did not know what to do, and I didn't think art was like a real, like a real business enterprise. But I was very curious about drawing and the elements of painting and all that. And so it almost became an obsession where I was like really curious about what this is. What is this? What is this act of putting marks on paper or canvas? And I had always done that since I was a kid. And so after, a couple of years at ELAC, my instructor said, "Man, you need to get out of here." He's like,
Lárgate, güey.
if you don't leave,
you've outgrown it,
if you don't leave, I'm gonna kick you out.
Wow. You just kept
I'm
taking
gonna call the sheriffs, and I'm gonna tell them, that you're not, to kick
because
you out.
there's those classes that you can continue to take that you don't even need instruction anymore, and you're just getting credits, but you're not really.
Yeah.
Like,
so
You've already fulfilled whatever you needed to fulfill.
Yeah, there. yeah. So drawing, I think it was drawing one. Drawing, the basics of drawing 1, 2, and 3, and then there's live drawing, and I think that one has like 8 classes. Yeah. So I took all of them, and then I would audit. That what you're talking about is called auditing the class. You sign up for it. You're not really doing any of the assignments, but you're there to
You use all the stuff.
So he's all like, "Dude, do some research." Do some research and get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here.
And so that was maybe like about in 2007, 2006. And around that time, a really good friend of mine who since passed away, she had gotten accepted for the MFA program at RISD. And she told me the news, and we were both like super stoked, super happy, because I always looked up to her. She was a couple years older than me. And so I asked her, "So are you gonna fly out there or what?" And she's like, "No, I'm gonna drive." I'm like, "You're gonna drive? Who are you going with?" She's like, "Oh, like very casually, by myself." She's small, 5'2", 100 pounds, And I'm like, "Are you serious?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like,
because when you're gonna do those things, you don't think twice. It's like, oh, it has to be done. There's no option. Yeah.
Yeah, but me being like in that mode or whatever, I'm like, well, what if?
Yeah.
I get a couple of people and we'll make a road trip out of it. We'll follow you over there.
Wow.
You stay over there and we'll fly back. And so we did that, and we took like 2 weeks on the road, just going from LA to, we actually got all the way up to Boston.
Wow.
But we stopped in Chicago was one of the stops and we checked out the facilities and the museum, first rate, like really, really, really good.
What's the name of the school?
The School of the Art Institute of Chicago. And they're associated with the Art Institute of Chicago, which is a major museum out there, really good. And I went in and I really liked the facilities. Having the museum as a teaching tool was also like really, really great. And so, she stayed in Rhode Island. We flew back, and then I'm like, okay, it's time to like follow in her footsteps, And I applied to like Rhode Island. I applied to several schools, and I got into all of them except one. And then Chicago offered like the most amount of help, and I'm like, okay, like I really like their school and the program, and they're offering a good amount of help, so I'm gonna jump on it. And I applied. I had already applied. They sent me the award letter, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And that was like in 2008, 2009, and then I spent 3 years out there.
And what did that teacher say?
They were happy. they were, they were. I went to go tell them, and they're like, oh, "Okay, that's really good. That's I'm really happy about that." And
That was already expected of you. But, they're
I
glad.
don't think it was.
Well, no,
They were.
I guess like cause how we grow up, like we just do stuff sometimes, and we don't know like the path that you need to follow. We don't know that shit.
It was. Yeah.
And even though we have counselors and people like that try to explain, it's really difficult for them to figure you out. That's what they don't know. Like they don't like you might have had a counselor that tried to talk to you, but they don't know you. This teacher, I'm sure they knew you already and they knew your work. And
You know
like,
what? Yeah.
you
Then
need
it
to do
becomes
something
not
like that.
about just a teacher and a student, but a person caring for
Yeah.
another person and knowing their potential or seeing
Yeah.
their potential within them,
Yeah.
and sort of like
Yeah.
guide them in that path where they feel that you're gonna
Yeah.
become a more happier or
Yeah, you need to fulfill that next level.
fulfillment. Yeah, for sure. Uh-huh.
You know, we all kind of like we challenge ourselves. We want to learn something. You challenge yourself. You want to learn something, and then if you're repeating the same like challenge, you could get it'll get tired. So you got to find a different challenge. And motherfucker, that was a challenge. I mean, to move to Chicago. I mean, I've never lived out of this city more than a couple of months. So for me, it's something like it's impressive to fucking just up and go and say let's do this. And so I mean, I think it's impressive, of course, but everybody does it across the country.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
for somebody like me, I see it as something like really impressive. And how was that? Like East LA to Pilsner, right? Is it Pilsner?
Pilsen.
Pilsen,
Pilsen.
East LA to Pilsen, and what was that like? And how was the people there? And
Super friendly people in Chicago. Very beautiful city. It's not as big as LA. It has like a small town feel. Like I said, super friendly. Really cold, and the summer really warm. I didn't. When I landed in Chicago, I didn't have a place to stay, so I started a hostel for like a couple of maybe like a week or two. And so then, as school started to come into play, we would have like student days where we would go in and they would like talk to us about the programs, and then they would help us, or they would take us to different neighborhoods to around Chicago to just kind of experience the city. And other towns where I mean, they were nice, but I just didn't click with any of them. And then the last stop we made was at Pilsen, and like when we got off, there was like little kids running around. There was like a paletero passing by. There was a carnita place. There was a little liquor store.
Place.
Yeah, and so it just felt like it felt like East LA. It felt like home. And so I'm like, okay, this is definitely my place. This is the spot. And so I found an apartment in that area, and I stayed there for the whole 3 years. Yeah.
If you can, I mean, go back in your head.
Yeah.
What was like your journey from all these years at East LA College doing their classes and stuff, to then being thrown into this pretty well known art institute, like and how was it getting thrown into that school from this one, and how was like your artistic like self? How did your artistic self grow or get scared or
Well, at ELAC, to begin with, I think for the most part it was intro classes. Where they're teaching you about the materials, they're teaching you about the technicalities of making something. Fundamentals, there you go, the fundamentals. But thanks to the people like Jim, when I got to SAIC, I felt like okay, like damn, like Eli did a really good job because I was keeping my own. Like it was dope. It was like I felt prepared.
You mean you did a good job where you didn't feel threatened by the people there or
I mean, I
like
don't
that?
think it's even about being threatened. It was just it felt like
You were
oh
trained enough to know
yeah,
not to.
like yeah, trained. I felt confident in what I was doing. And Chicago, I applied to the advanced painting department, which usually it's a program that is reserved for the seniors that are, because they give them their own studio, they give them access 24 hours to the facilities, and they're right under the grad program. And so I'm like, I'm gonna stay here because so you have to reapply, and it's like this really. I mean, when I went to apply, there was like a line of like about 70 undergrads, and everybody wanted to get in, and so that's just a sign up, and then you have to interview with 3 different instructors, painting, and then they kind of measure you up. Oh, is this person ready? And so I got in. Like I did one semester where because I couldn't apply because I was not there, so after the first semester I applied because they told me about it, and then I got in. And so it was a really, very rigorous program. I was there most of the most of the time, um, and it was cool because it was 24-hour access. Like you could use the facilities. It was your studio.
Yeah.
You would share it with another person, but it was
That's
most of the time.
badass.
Yeah, so it was really, and we had like, practicing artists, but I mean the only difficult part was that you had to figure out what it is that you were trying to say with your work.
Yeah.
And that was very difficult to find what it is. I mean, to draw or to draw well or to paint well is one thing, right? But then, like, how do you explain what you're trying to do, or how do you hone that into something that's more substantial than just, oh, look, I made a pretty drawing.
Yeah.
And so our,
And
our critiques were, pretty intense, and we had to talk about them and
did you ever
give
cry?
feedback. Did I ever cry? Man, no comment, bro. Nah, no, I never cried,
Cried when
man.
you got home.
No, I never cried. I was close. Nah, I'm just kidding. It was just, yeah, the critiques were harsh, and just thinking about it right now, it's like I would always stand. We would start at 9 in the morning to 4 p.m., and they
Damn.
would put chairs, and for some reason, like I just thought of it right now, like I would always be standing from 9 to 4. Like they would give us the lunch break,
Yeah.
go eat, and then come back, and then just standing. Like I don't know. I guess I felt like I didn't want to I didn't want to be rude and fall asleep. So I
Damn.
felt like so it was just like standing, and it just I don't know. Just thinking about it, that was kind of weird. That was
What
kind of weird.
what do you learn from your critiques? That's
What do you learn from your
interesting. Cause
critiques?
I've never been through anything like that, so just
What do
wondering.
you learn from your critiques? Well, you learn to talk about your work. You measure your ideas against other people. Which is kind of like vulnerable. You kind of try to put out what you're trying to say, and it's that it's going to be judged, and it's going to be talked about, and you're going to be asked questions, and those questions sometimes are not easy to they're not easy to the questions are not easy to
Put words together. Yeah.
yeah. So it became those critiques were a little intimidating at first, because these guys, I mean, it was a very small program. I think it was about 12 kids that were accepted out of
Wow.
I don't know how many that applied.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I mean, you just learn how to speak about your work, listen to other people and their ideas, and sort of, nobody's trying to be a dick or anything. They're just, but they are trying to get at the core of what you're trying to do, and
So
and yeah, you're trying to figure that out yourself with them.
yeah. So internally, I'm trying to like figure out like, does it hearing these critiques, does it mold what you do on the next one? Does it do you get to the next paint and then try to do something like, oh no, they said that, and you try to
Huh.
change it? Does that sometimes change the way you work? Maybe for the better, or I don't know.
No, that's a really interesting question, and I don't know. um, I don't think it really changes the way you work, but it definitely brings in new points that you will consider.
Oh,
Like
that's
I,
good.
I had a really bad I had a really bad critique, man. Like terrible. Like it almost made me cry, dude.
You're gonna cry right now, bro.
It's post-traumatic stress.
I could hear it.
No, it was terrible, man. And I love drawing, and I took a
yeah.
drawing class, and I think I failed the class, man. I think I failed the class. I couldn't remember if it was a D or a C or a fail, man. But I learned from that. I learned the biggest lesson that sometimes you take for granted, and I'll share it with you guys. So basically, I was doing the drawings, and I was kind of bored, man. I was because I think I fucked up because it was an intro class, but and so I was kind of bored, and I did like this fucking like really, it was a nice drawing, but for the final, but I know that I was bullshitting it, and for critique, I put up the work, and the teacher's just looking at it, and then excuse me, he's all like, right off the bat, he's like, I have a question for you, and I'm like, shoot. He's like, did you have fun making this work? Did you enjoy making this work? And like, you know, I always think like honesty is the best policy. And I'm like, nah, man, I really didn't. I didn't really enjoy the assignment. I didn't. He's like, okay. And then he just looked at me straight in the eye, and he's like, if you didn't enjoy making it, what makes you think that we're gonna enjoy looking at it? And that thing just completely opened up my eyes. And that.
Did this teacher know you already?
Well, it was the final. So,
so yeah.
So it was.
He knew your work, or
he knew the work. He knew the work, and
you could tell.
Yeah, I think he could tell, but I just wasn't feeling it, man. I was not feeling it, man,
and that's a difficult thing because sometimes we just don't. You know,
But sometimes you just don't feel it, and I didn't particularly care for the class or the assignment, but that I still carry that with me right now.
Yeah.
I still carry it with me, and I think that, you know, it doesn't change the way I work, but when I'm having a bad day or it's not feeling well, the drawing is not feeling well, I'll be like, well, I'm just gonna take it easy, and you know, you're not gonna force it. But when you have a good day and you feel it, and you know that I try to get that to come out of the drawings. You know, it's not so much about the technicality, but I just want them to feel a certain way.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very like, you know, feel oriented, you know, like what a painting like makes me feel, what an artwork makes me feel, what a photograph makes me feel when I look at it. I'm like, I edit my pictures until I feel something, and then, you know, kind of done. So I completely like appreciate that little story. That's a really good thing to take home.
Yeah, it's crazy. I I feel it's like our Catholic upbringing. You know, like
Está mirando Diosito, mijo. Te está mirando.
Yeah, like it's like all the artwork. You know, you have this virgin that's crying. You know, you have this Jesus that's like super sad, and the stages of the cross, like
everything is pain.
Everything is fucking feeling, dude.
Even the heart has the spines on it. This crown has spines on it.
Yeah. So it kind of feels like we gravitate towards. I grew up going to mass every Sunday, and that's what I would see all the time.
Well, they wanted us to be used to suffering because they were going to keep us poor. So So you're at Chicago. You're studying art. When do you see like a type of growth, or when do you see something that you're like, I'm a badass motherfucker? Or was that even when you were younger?
No, I never. That was something that I never cared for, like being a badass motherfucker.
Not that, but I mean,
but you know,
when did you feel like like I can do this and I have a really good like sense of what I'm doing? Or do you? I mean,
well, when I came out of Chicago,
that's a tough question because some of us do what we do and we don't even know.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the best. That's the best. That when it comes out, like when you're not even thinking about it. You know, when you're thinking about, I gotta make a badass painting.
Yeah.
Dude, it's not gonna come.
That's dumb.
But after Chicago, I stopped painting. Like I didn't want anything to do with painting.
Yeah.
Because there's so much stuff that you're always talking about it. You're always like critiquing. You're always looking at it. So at that time, it felt good.
Yeah.
But then after you step away from it, I came back to LA, and I was like, fuck, dude, I don't want to deal with this shit. You know, like, I don't want to look at it. I don't want to talk about it. So I took about a year or two without making any work.
Yeah.
And I landed a job. I mean, I was still working at ELAC, and I went back and I talked to my instructor, and he's like, yeah, dude, like, why don't you could be a TA and
Awesome.
well, you could be here, and it was super dope, you know, like, and I think going back to the roots of like helping youngsters, you know, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, even like older people that wanted to learn how to draw. It just felt good because there was an interest in drawing and all that stuff, right? And then after about 1 or 2 years, I'm like, okay, I mean, this is not bringing me any pleasure, man. And the teacher's critique was still, you know, why am I gonna make it if I'm not feeling it?
Yeah.
And then so one time I'm like, dude, well, this can't keep happening, dude. Like I need to shake this off, you know. So I'm like, okay, well, what brought me the most joy when I was drawing, and I thought of my childhood, and I was like, man, like drawing when I was bored, I'll fucking draw.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sad, dude, I'm gonna draw, dude. So this thing it made me feel, it would heal me, man. It would, you know. And so I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna approach it in drawing because at the core of it, that's how it started.
Yeah.
And then I remember I have these really beautiful memories of my dad. He would go to the bank, the one on First and Indiana. I think now it's a Chase or a City. I think it's a City, but it used to be Glendale Federal Bank. And so I would go with him to the bank whenever he would deposit something or take out money. And it was cool because like we would go in and like the bank tellers were like, "Oh, Mr. Lopez, how are you?" Shake his hand, and I was like, "Damn, that's my dad," you know. And he would go. He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go talk to them." He would go to the office, and then I'd be like, "Okay, I'll wait for you outside." And they used to have the deposit slips, and then those pens with the little beads, you know, the chain. And I would just be right there waiting for him, and I'll be drawing. So I'm like, "Oh, that's a really beautiful memory of me drawing," and so. For some reason, I went back to that bank.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I went back to the bank just because I felt I needed to revisit that location for whatever reason. And that's the moment that I parked facing El Pino. And I saw the landscape. It just appeared, and I'm like, wow, this is really pretty. And I'm like, okay.
I know exactly the view because it goes down and up and down and up. And then.
Yeah, it's this really beautiful feel. Yeah. And I had just a pen and a piece of paper, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna draw.
Yeah. 1 hour later.
Yeah, I was like, oh shoot, like came out really good. I liked it, right? And it wasn't perfect. It wasn't no shading, no nothing. It was just very like
already the story like tells me like where your mind was, where your heart was, where you're and then that comes out in your hand. You know?
Man. Like, so it, you know, I'm like, whoa, like this is really something interesting. I really like this. And then the next day, I'm like, I'm gonna try it again. And I went, and this time I thought, I'll fucking make a badass drawing, dude. So I got a pen. And I had like this, you know, this nice paper and shit. Like I'm an artist, motherfuckers.
You put on a beret back.
Fuck, dude, I with my pipe and my like striped shirt. And dude, like I did this fucking like really rendered drawing, but it had none of the feeling of the first one. It was shadow, it was proportions, like a good drawing. Yeah. But it did not have the feeling that the first one did, where there was something that was just coming out of that paper. Yeah. And so I'm like looking at both of them, and here is the criticism that you're doing at SAIC or at ELAC. But you're doing it to yourself now. Like you're depending on yourself. So I'm like, okay, technically this one's better, but what is going on with this one? Yeah. And so that moment of curiosity, of questioning, like, why is this one acting a certain way and this one is not? Even though this one...
When the paper breathes, right?
Dude,
it's your paper is breathing, dude.
Yeah, dude.
You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, well, this is something. This is something, and that's already, boom, something. That's a curiosity or a wonder and something. And so I went back, nah, nothing. And I'm like, okay, okay, this is fun now.
Yeah.
See, now this
Gotta
is
find
fun.
it, yeah.
Now you gotta find
You
what
gave yourself
that
a
one was
challenge.
doing.
Yeah.
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 And so I went back,
Badass.
boom, 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 nothing, nothing, nothing. And then after about the 10th try, something. Oh, shoot. There it is.
Yeah.
It's coming out on this one, so I'll put it over here.
Yeah.
You guys can stay over there, but these two come over here.
Yeah.
And then I started to go to different spots. And then
That's
slowly,
how that started.
boom,
Wow.
boom, boom. And I just started doing them and not showing anybody.
Yeah.
I started like in 2012, 2013. And that was just me in the car, coming out of the car for 3 years, not showing nobody, you know? Excuse me. And I think that also was special because they weren't for anybody.
Yeah.
They were for me.
Yeah. They were serving you.
Ah.
They were serving a purpose to you. Like
It was that whole thing about
Yeah.
me telling you that they're kind of healing you. They're kind of like it's a purpose, man.
Yeah,
It's a purpose, and I think when it comes down to it, you talk about institutions, you talk about museums, you talk about these things that are forged in something that's concrete, in paper, in writing, But then at the end of the day, like mark making is something so primordial
Yeah.
that it kind of becomes something sacred because it's so old.
Yeah.
And so then it became about the spirit or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
coming forth from the work.
Yeah.
And I think that was never like really addressed in Chicago. And then I started working with like Semillas, the school in El Sereno, and they would talk about, the ancestors or the past cultures. And I started to go a little bit more into like, I was very much interested more in the codices and the plain drawings, done by Native Americans when they were being relocated. And I thought that they were doing something so beautiful, man. And I, like the codices, I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what they're saying, man. But at the end of the day, they're speaking to me very loudly.
Yeah.
And it's a language that is so abstract, but it doesn't matter because the spirit feels it. So I felt that really strong connection with all that. And I think that was like a really beautiful moment where you're recognizing something that comes like very deep from within you, And it's, I have roots in Mexico, and they have a long tradition of making stuff, not art in the traditional, I don't think they had anything to do with art, but everything served a purpose. And the first time I went to Mexico, I was about, what was it? I was like maybe 6 years old. And I remember feeling like, I remember that's the first time I really saw the cerros, like or hearing the word cerros. Oiga, like my dad, like, oiga, ahí en ese cerro trabajábamos, yo y tu tío. And I was like, cerro. Dude, like that's a fucking badass word, And then like we were driving through the roads and they were not paved. So all the dust. So like to me, it was like Mexico became this place where it was like these fucking rock formations with dust. Like, and like when you find something old, it's covered in dust. So to me, it was like a revelation, going back to the roots. And that was the first time that I really experienced color as well in Mexico. We landed in Jalisco, and then we drove to my grandma's house, which was maybe like an hour away from Guadalajara. And when we got to her house, she used to have this really bright and beautiful turquoise house, and on the outside it was turquoise, but when we opened the doors, boom, there was the color again. I was always used to white walls or the old yellowish,
Navajo white. That's the famous color.
Is that the one? Yeah, it was, with like little stains, and I never experienced color, man. So when I walked in there, it was like all like this bright turquoise.
Wow.
There was no roof because it was like I don't know what you call those type of homes, but
Yeah, it goes all the way around, and in the middle there's
then in the middle there's
open air.
open air, and then there's plants inside the house, man.
Yeah.
Big plants, and it just felt very different from the U.S.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like when I experienced like color for real. It's like I really felt that color.
Wow.
So again, I started going back to these memories as a young person that's noticing and is taking note of things that are being visually given to me, and I hold them for whatever reason. I just hold them very dear to me.
Yeah.
You know.
And that, what is what started you back to like painting and using colors again?
So in Chicago, I was using a lot of bright colors, and Chicago, I think, is like very kind of subdued with color. You know, you have a lot of brick buildings. It's super gray, man. Beautiful, beautiful architecture, but just like very, especially in the winter, it just gets really kind of grayish, man. But I was using a lot of color at the school, and then a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is like so tropical. This is so exotic," you know. And to me, it's like, dude, like, I know there's parts, you know, yeah, Latin America is known as a tropical or exotic place. But to me, it was always about like the dust and the cerros, you know? It was always this earthiness to it. Even like the food, I feel like is very earthy, man, like super earthy. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. Like part of the earth. We are part of the earth.
Yeah.
We consume
Tortillas.
tortillas, man. Yeah. And so my whole thing was like, man, can I make work without the color? What if I take away all the color? What if I don't use any color? So that's why I did the drawings, just black and white. It was just line work, because I wanted to take away I think color is very powerful. It's very, very powerful. And it also decorates very, very easily. Where if you make a drawing, it could be a bad drawing, but if you add color, ooh, it looks pretty. But I'm like, okay, how do you take away all those crutches where it's just going to be bare boned and will it stand? So I'm like, okay, let me fucking master drawing for what it is at the bare essence, and I took a bunch of stuff, man, to arrive at.
There's like some serious shit in your drawings that are so like bare minimum, but I remember when you started showing me your drawings, and there were some that you do that they, you know, they don't feel undone, but they look like, oh, he could have kept going here. What happened? You're going to finish that part? No, it's done. But they don't feel incomplete. They feel whole. Something about the way that you connect the lines, just like...
I think I will get that a lot in critiques. Like, why isn't this finished? So I think I just became a good bullshitter. but I meant it, man. But I meant it. You know,
meant to end it there, yeah.
I meant to end it there.
Yeah.
So...
Because even in like comedy or in music, like the silent parts are really important. So like in the drawing, like the negative or the blank is equally important, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think those moments of contemplation sometimes they just get to you, man. I mean, you're doing it, and then you're like, fuck, dude, like this is something that it could just stop here.
Yeah.
Because you'll kill it, because it'll fall apart.
And it tells you, right?
And it seriously does. It tells you, hey man, stop right here, man. And I will get that a lot, man, where people were like just kind of like messing around, but it would kind of bother me a little bit sometimes. You're like, hey, dude, why don't you finish? Hey man, like, why is it not done? You still left a bunch of
that too.
Yeah, dude, I used to hate that shit. I just no, but it was just like and I thought that was really funny, man. You know, it's kind of like, I don't know. I was just kind of like.
Well, it's probably your bit of comedy too. You know, it's probably like your FU, or you're like this is my shit, and this is where, you know, it could be a lot of things, but you definitely do it well.
Oh, thank you.
I wanna ask you just a couple of things that I've written down here. What do you think? These are like general questions about art in general. So it's like, what do you think is more important? Or how would you compare like an artist's skill versus the vision, or you know, or if somebody that has a great imagination can be great without having like a lot of actual skill in putting things together? Like, where is that? How does that balance for you? Or I don't know. How would you describe that to, I guess, people trying to learn about art?
That's a very hard question. Next question. No, I'm just kidding, man. I don't know, man. You know, I think the vision is definitely very important. The skill, I mean, you could teach it.
Yeah.
You know, I started buying a lot of work, maybe like 3, 4 years ago. And one time I just buy them and I put them in a drawer, and I don't even look at them. But I just gravitate towards something. And I never really thought about it. They started to accumulate, and then one day I'm like, oh shoot, like what's this? And I open the drawer and I'm like, okay, oh dude, these are all the things that I bought. And I put them on the floor, and I was just looking down on the floor, and I was looking at all these drawings, and I realized that I just buy stuff. I don't really buy stuff from like people that know how to draw or like that have. But dude, like I realized like I buy a lot of stuff from like people who are selling stuff on the streets, you know. Or when I was at Semillas, I would buy work from students. Like I was like, dude, that's like really, really dope. Like I'll buy it off of you. And they're like, really, mister? I'm like, yeah, man. Like keep on doing it. And you know, and I buy like work off of like older people as well. And again, like
interesting hand.
very, very interesting, man. I don't know if you ever noticed like your mom's handwriting. Yeah. Because my mom has like a peculiar way of writing. Super.
I learned to forge her.
Oh, me too, man. Dude, I could forge you like nothing, bro. Like, you know, like
high school.
Yeah, I have like 3 credit cards. But yeah, dude. So they have like, you know, and then I started to realize like, look at like the term they term them outsider artists, and I like I don't know. I don't know. Their vision is like so. I like stuff that you can't really explain, man. Like you don't know why. I gravitate towards stuff that I don't know why it's working or what it's setting off in me, but I need to. You know, like I love it, man. Like, it's just not hard to explain. But
in my opinion, that like outsider art and all that stuff, in my little opinion, I gravitate towards it because it feels like childlike, like, you know, the innocent, like the brain that doesn't like worry about.
There's a disregard for being judged. There's a
like,
certain honesty.
I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, there's a certain honesty, man.
And I'm letting my body like decide what this pen does.
Again, very primordial.
Yeah,
you're not thinking.
Yeah,
like you're feeling and
you're just touching the paint and touching the thing. Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen that much. I have, I guess. I've seen pretty much of this work, but fuck, it's really. It just draws you, right? It pulls you towards it.
It does, man. And then, excuse me, when you try to reproduce it, when somebody that knows how to draw tries to do it, it looks so bad, man. And
like all the fake Basquiat copies, people that try to paint like
that hand is because you can't. I mean, you could try to fake it. I mean, I think you know, try to copy a lot of people that I admire or works I admire. Yeah, but I think I don't know. You know, as long as you enjoy what you're doing or something, I really don't know.
Well, let's move into like what we have here on the wall is just a few sketches that are left here, but Manuel's studio is now empty. He's taken all of his work to the Charlie James Gallery, where if you're listening to this on Friday morning, the 28th.
28th. Friday the 20th, yeah. The show will be
if you're listening to this Friday morning, the 28th, the show will be on the 29th, Saturday at 6 p.m. At the Charlie James Gallery in Chinatown. Google it. But you know, Manuel has been an artist that you've been around the art scene for a long time. You've had some shows. You've been in group shows. You had a really decent size, good size show at Eastern Projects. You sold a lot of pieces. But you still like kind of like have been under the radar a little bit. But people that know you and know your art like really love what you do. So like now that I think having this show at Charlie James Gallery is probably going to put a lot more eyes on you. Is going to put a lot more you know, spotlights. Right. So how do you feel about that and moving forward and I don't know, just
me neither.
How are you celebrating? Because it's a big deal, brother.
Yeah, no, it is.
It's a big deal.
I'm celebrating by getting some decent sleep. I think for the past 3 months, it's just been a lot of work, and I know sometimes like. For the most part, they offer you a solo show. It'll be like they'll give you like a good year. I was offered, shorter amount than that, and I just felt like I needed that challenge, just because I hadn't painted in such a long time, and I felt like if I lagged it, I was just gonna lag it for another year, another 2 years. So I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let me put on my boots, and let's do it. And I produced.
So-
I produced, man. I produced.
I'm trying to figure out the timeline. When was it that you were told that the show opened in January 29th?
Like 2 days ago, bro. Nah, like it was a good. I mean, it was solid, like maybe solid 3 months.
But 3 months, and you produced how many paintings?
A little bit, 9 or 10.
9 or 10, but they're very detailed paintings. They have a lot of intricate little tiny.
I think a lot, man. I think I'll put a mark and then I'll sit down for like 20 minutes, and then usually try to cover everything, and then like the last couple of weeks were just like nonstop, man, and it just felt really good.
So I know that this time for this show, you because of the timeline and because the amount of works you were trying to finish, you recruited some help. And how was that part? Like actually having other people apply paint to your canvas on some spots, and
It felt really weird. It felt really weird, man. It felt really weird because I'm really bad at communicating. So I'll be like, oh yeah, just put paint right there, and then I'll walk away, and they're like, this guy just nah. No, this. And it was just minor stuff. They were doing an excellent job. But it was just me, like, not communicating with people. So I, like, shout out to Eves and to Rashid. They helped me out a lot. And I don't think I could have, they were just, such big help, man.
real quick, I tried, but I kept.
Yeah, you
I
offered.
couldn't stay inside the lines.
I fired you like twice.
I fired myself. I told you I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to.
No, it was really strange. Just because, I don't know, then I started thinking about, like, just, like, the way a painting comes into being. Like, I mean, it's your painting because, like, you're, like, literally, like, you're making, like, one choice out of 1,000 choices. Colored.
On every little line.
Every little line, man, and it, painting, like, is dope because, like, it catches those moments, and so it was interesting. Helps you grow as a person, as an artist, and I'm just grateful that they offered to help me out, and but yeah, it was interesting, man. Yeah, like Rashid, like he did a stint over there in Europe for a year, and then he came back, and I was just happy to see him. And so, like, the first time, it was already like, I was like, dude, it's like 2 weeks, and we're right there just catching up. Yeah. Like, dude.
To work, bro.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a beautiful thing, but I was like, oh man, I have a deadline.
Yeah.
Damn. And so then after he would leave, I'll be like, fuck, dude, now I have to fucking stay overtime have to go to sleep at 5 a.m. now, So, but it was all good. Like, it was, it was working under pressure. It's just, it hardens you. It teaches you.
How did? So you went from, like, art school and all that, coming back here, drawing landscapes, the very bare minimum. How did you, like, get into then, like, drawing plants? And where does the inspiration for all that come from? Like, this show has a lot of plant still life and stuff like that. So how did that transition happen, or why?
Well, 2020 was that year that completely changed everything. We went on the lockdown, and so I would always try to be outside. So from now it's like, okay, I don't want to be outside. Like, why risk it? I'm gonna be inside. So, like, so I just started kind of really noticing the stuff that was around me, and again, going back to, like, those memories of, like, childhood. Like, as a kid, you can't, like, at 7 years old, you're not gonna go out to the streets or you're not outside unless you're a cool kid, man. Nah. But, like, like, you're at home and you're playing your video games and you're just bored, and so I'm like, fuck, dude, like, this is a cool setup, and I drew it. Like, oh, my fucking toe looks, yay. And just, like, random stuff, and then I started to, like, I think, like, 2 weeks before we went on lockdown, for some reason I went to go somebody wanted me to do a mural, and they were gonna pay me a good amount of money, and I was like, yeah, I'm down. And then there was a plant store, and I ran over there, and then I just went in to look at them. I saw these two cool plants, and I got them. And then during the lockdown, I was like taking care of them, like I was like, oh, don't let them die, don't let them die. And like they're still alive right now. But then they became like my little friends, man. So I would just like kind of draw them, and then I would I would be reading a book, and then I would just like, oh, put a fucking plant over the book and draw it. I became very much interested in like design, like like all this stuff.
Book design.
Yeah, the labels, the colors, like it just it's design that's meant to grab your eye. Yeah. So I'm like, well, if I draw it, well,
hopefully it'll grab their eye.
It's fucking easy, dude. It's just fucking copy the design that's already there. And then it was funny because like when you read when you see a painting, the first thing or what they call it is that you're reading a painting, right? You're literally like trying to read what it says, reading the color, reading the composition, all that stuff. And so like I think most of these guys, it was literally like everything had text. Everything had text. Yeah. And so I'm like, change it up a little bit. And sometimes people ask me like, oh, why do you flip your E's or turn them upside down? And I'm like, well, it just makes it more interesting. Like, it's just like those little inconsistencies that sort of like make you look for stuff. And so like I just kind of like wanted to be like, I know it's not a landscape, but it's kind of like you're viewing it as, it's not just an image that you fucking see it and it's like, oh, okay, it's a drawing. Yeah, it's nice. But it's kind of like, you could get lost in certain details.
Yeah, little details.
And when you look at it, something opens up and then you see inconsistencies and, so recognize logos or, so it became this thing where it just became super fun and it made the time go by, and doing something productive. A lot of drawings. And then those drawings were what you have now at the show, where learning how to translate the drawings and translate them into paintings, which was very difficult because, this is done in an hour.
Yeah.
So, but a painting is like, dude, I have to fucking mix the color. I have to, make sure that everything looks proportional. And then I don't want to lose that sense of immediacy.
And if I'm not mistaken, you never use like the paint color as it's out of the tube. You pretty much mix everything.
No, sometimes I would just squeeze it out and just.
Oh, okay.
Just.
I thought you mixed all your colors.
No, some of them were like just like a lot of yellows.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I discovered yellow and orange. Yeah.
So what do you think? If all of a sudden, there's a show coming up and you have to deliver another 40 pieces, and so then you become a machine. there's a factory now, and I'm not saying that you're gonna do this, but I'm saying like, what do you think about like the process of like painting, like motivated by your desire to paint, and then motivated by like the need to get shit to galleries? Do you have any opinions on like versus?
Or like just making stuff to
Yeah,
show?
yeah. Like sometimes you paint because you fucking need to paint because you need to like draw and then add whatever, and finish it and figure something out. But how do you think it'll change when it becomes like I need to do these paintings because X gallery needs them, immediately?
I think I would try to avoid that.
Yeah.
I like to work where sometimes I don't feel like making a painting. Sometimes I feel like going for a walk.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just don't feel like making a painting, dude. So,
yeah.
And I think like I was telling you, like when people were helping me paint, like communication is key. So you tell people what you feel, and hopefully they understand. I don't want to make 40 paintings.
Of course not.
Why don't I make 40 paintings, man? Like, I'll make 3, and if you want to put them up,
But do you think it'll change for you, like the desire to like, want to complete these paintings? or is it going to be a different satisfaction? Or
Well, I think that I mean, there's definitely got to be that drive of making paintings. Right now, I'm really enjoying it. Like it was really funny because at the beginning, I couldn't get into them, so I had to force myself to get into them. And then about maybe 3 weeks ago, when one was done, okay, it's done. I'll put it over here, and then I'll just work on these, and then this one's done. Put it over here, and so once there was more on that side, I started to feel a little bit more relief. And once that relief started to set in, then this joy started to come in where, okay, there's no more pressure. So I'm gonna have fun. So now it's more about fun. But then I would look over there and then I would feel pressured. So then I would get bummed out. So it's like learning how to like juggle this shit where, you gotta be at a good place. I mean, at least personally speaking.
yeah, like
I
play
think
with your own mind
to keep it like challenging or to keep it exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, after a certain maybe like a week ago, dude, I was just like here. I even brought them off the wall and I was on the floor, dude. I was like I felt like a kid, man. I just going into it and I just felt like really good. And then also like going back and forth from painting to drawing, I think that's like an escape as well. And then with Andres working on that etching.
Yeah.
That's a whole other medium that I still want to really explore. And I'm really looking forward to like completing new etchings and just really doing something where it's gonna be something very ambitious that I just kind of came into my head a couple days ago, and I really want to see it through. Yeah.
You said something earlier where you said something about like, what are you trying to say with your art? And like, I think I forgot exactly how you put it, but you said, what are you trying to say? If I asked you, looking at your show that is opening tomorrow, I mean Saturday, what would you say that you're trying to say with this show?
Oh, that's a good question.
It opens in 2 days.
In 2 days, that's I better. I'll get back to you on that one.
There's gonna be people there asking you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just like things that. It's like really funny as human beings, the things that surround us. You're always thinking about certain things that float around people, and you're always like, like when you have a crush on someone, a girl, like, oh, I wonder the way her bedroom looks. You know what I mean? Like, dude, like kind of creepy shit, like, how that she puts her shoes on the floor.
Okay.
Or when you go into your mom's room and she has her little statues of like saints.
Yeah, the Diosito.
Or the little teddy bears like hugging her little doilies on top of the VCR, the DVD player, or the TV, or just like all these little things that just are always floating around you.
Yeah.
And they tell something about you, and I'm just looking at them, and sometimes they come loaded with a memory, and so when I see them, like they just trigger that kind of like this is either a flashback or something, or you're like kind of looking at it, and then you kind of like get it and try to arrange it into like a composition, and then I try to draw it in a way that looks super free, super like unambitious, kind of wacky, kind of like off-centered, kind of, and it's just like recording this object just because I mean, I don't know, it's just triggering something within me. Yeah. But again, it goes back to everything that's like floating around us. Everything. Yeah. You look at there when you go back to your
documenting something in a way. Yeah.
And it's those small little. I'm not going after the grand.
Yeah.
Memorialization of like the Chicano struggle. Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about you take out a certain individual from the Chicano struggle, and you go into his home, and he has certain things in his home, and that is gonna tell you also something.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm not going after the grand scheme of like narrative painting but I'm just going after like those little moments that happen in life that are like so overlooked, but you could bring a certain poetry or certain feeling out of them. Yeah. That sometimes you dismiss them, but there's something, I don't know, there's something behind them, and I'm trying to sort of catch that or
Yeah.
record it, like you said, on paper for a long time. Yeah.
Well, is there anything that you want to share with people or talk about before we round this thing off? Okay, there's something that I ask every guest that comes on, and it's you can answer this in any way you want, but answer in one sentence.
In one
You know,
sentence.
and I ask everybody, no matter what their art is, musicians or painters or comedians. There's a thing that you do, and you do it with a certain kind of magic. But the question that we want to know is, how do you do it?
How do you do it?
How do you do it? What is the one thing that you put in it that you think helps you do it? So how do you do it?
You just, like Nike, bro, you just do it. I mean, you just go at it, man, and whatever comes out. I mean, you gotta be. Well, you said one sentence, right?
Yeah.
Did I mess up already?
No, you could tell me now one sentence or a few words.
Well, yeah. I think you do it, and then you become. You ask yourself questions, man. You ask yourself questions.
So you do it by asking yourself questions.
I think so, or keeping
right.
that okay, or being curious about the things that.
So you do it with curiosity.
Or
Pick one.
I don't know, man.
How do you do it? Manuel López, how do you do it?
Just do it. Just do it, man.
All right. Well, follow Manuel López. The Instagram is right here below. If you're listening on the audio places, he spells it at MEAUNL _ LPOEZ.
To remember.
And the show will be up at Charlie James Gallery for
It's scheduled until the 26th of February.
Scheduled until
make
the
sure you
26th of
catch it
February.
before the 26th.
And that's it, right?
Hopefully, if you guys are listening on Friday, you make it out on Saturday. It'd be nice. It's a
make
good
it
show. It's a really good show.
Opening is Saturday at 6 p.m. There's going to be music.
Music.
It's in Chinatown.
Yes, sir.
Look up Charlie
And I think
James
it's
Gallery.
Chinese New Year weekend.
it is?
So I think they're gonna have a lot of events around Chinatown. So,
So you could have a whole evening out there.
you could
Get some food. Get some
got a lot
fun.
of good food. Yeah.
And that's it. Thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed my first remote Dancing Sober podcast.
All right.
And we'll see you soon. Peace out.
Thank you, Rafa.